While a U.S. government default may be averted after all, it's important to remember that this is a short-term deal, and the possibility of a default a few months from now has still not been taken off the table, which is why it might be important to learn lessons about previous nations that have defaulted. RT's Perry-Ann Boring did just that when she sat down with the former finance minister of Cyprus, a country that went through a messy default earlier this year and had to be rescued by central banks in Europe.
The U.S. has been on the brink of a crisis the entire month of October. And given your experience of governing during a crisis, how do we solve this?
Reasonable people can have differences about the role of government. Is it too big, too small? Should it be borrowing too much? Should it be solving social security and health this way or that way? But the way to solve these problems is not on a cliffhanger, on a crisis, and on a kind of giving the impression that you're blackmailing.
Do you think that the U.S. has lived beyond its means?
Well, I think the U.S. has been fortunate in the sense that it's like a bank. It prints the money that other people accept. So you can live beyond your means over an extended period of time without being punished by the markets. But clearly, we have seen that enough people are now seriously concerned about that, and both domestically and internationally. So yes, the answer is yes.
Well, do you have any advice for lawmakers here in the U.S.? What do you think we should do? Should we raise the debt ceiling? Should we start prioritizing payments, austerity measures? I mean, what advice would you have?
I think taking a more responsible attitude, forget whether you have a safe seat and therefore you don't have to worry that even though a majority of the American people will be against continuing this crazy situation, take a more sort of national, global, if you like, sense of responsibility and see this problem too. It doesn't really help to be polarized. One has to really decide what are the priorities, and you cannot pay for everything. That really is very true. You know that about yourself, myself, our families, the companies we work with, the countries we have served. You cannot do that over an extended period of time. You really have to make choices. Some of them are not pleasant. You cannot please all the people all of the time. You got to make those cuts, and hopefully you're doing it in a way that it does not affect the prospects of future growth. It doesn't really affect those citizens that need the government most. There are many who get benefits who don't really need them, and there are those who need them who don't really get them. So some kind of redistribution also would be helpful to have also sustainable social fabric going forward.
That was RT's Perry-Ann Boring reporting.